5,000 years ago, before empires ruled the world, before philosophy had a name, before morality was written into law, a priest climbed a massive stone tower at dawn. At the top, he placed food in front of a god, who was not expected to speak, only to be satisfied. If the ritual failed, the river might flood, the crops might die, the city itself might vanish from history. This was not mythology. This was daily life. This was how the first religions functioned. And remarkably, some of these belief systems never disappeared. They are still alive today. For tens of thousands of years, human belief left no trace. It was spoken, performed, and forgotten. Then something extraordinary happened. Humans began to record the unseen, not in stories meant to entertain, but in systems meant to endure. Marks pressed into clay, symbols carved into stone, rituals standardized and repeated with precision. Belief stopped being personal. It became collective. And once belief could be recorded, it could be enforced. This was the true beginning of religion as power. For the first time, gods were no longer vague presences in nature. They became administrators of order, guarantors of law, and foundations of political authority. Religion did not merely explain the world. It organized it. Cities rose around sacred spaces. Kings ruled by divine mandate. Social hierarchy mirrored cosmic hierarchy. To obey the gods was to obey the state. This transformation did not happen once. It happened again and again, in different lands, under different names. And some of those systems, created thousands of years ago, never collapsed. They adapted. They survived. To understand the oldest religions still alive today, we must examine the moment belief stopped being instinct and became structure. That moment changed humanity forever. In the land between two rivers, humanity built its first experiment in organized belief. Mesopotamia, a region of extreme fertility and constant danger. The Tigris and Euphrates gave life, but they also destroyed it without warning. Floods came suddenly. Crops vanished overnight. Entire settlements disappeared beneath water and mud. For the Sumerians, the universe was not moral. It was unstable. And stability required administration. Sumerian religion was not based on faith or love. It was based on regulation. The Sumerians believed reality itself was governed by divine decrees known as the me. These were not abstract principles. They were specific functions. There was a me for kingship, a me for priesthood, a me for craftsmanship. There was even a me for prostitution. Every role in society existed because the gods allowed it. The universe was not chaotic by chance. It was chaotic by design, and only divine administration kept it from collapsing. The gods of Sumer reflected this worldview. They were powerful, unpredictable, and deeply indifferent to human suffering. Enlil, the god of storms, once attempted to destroy humanity, simply because human noise disturbed his sleep. This was not evil. It was bureaucracy. Humans were not children of the gods. They were servants. Cities existed to maintain divine order. And the center of every city was the ziggurat. Contrary to modern assumptions, the ziggurat was not a place of public worship. It was a restricted structure, a controlled interface between the human world and the divine administration above it. At the summit, priests prepared daily meals for the gods: bread, meat, beer. These offerings were not symbolic. They were functional. A satisfied god meant stable floods, fertile fields, and political order. An angry god meant collapse. Religion, in Sumer, was the first economy. Temple scribes recorded every offering, every animal, every jar of oil, Heaven had an accounting system, and when rulers died, the bureaucracy did not end. Excavations at the royal tombs of revealed something unsettling. Servants, soldiers, and musicians willingly followed their king into death, drinking poison to accompany him into the afterlife. The Sumerian underworld was not a paradise. It was dark, dusty, silent. Even the gods offered no comfort there. Yet the system endured, because for the Sumerians, order, even harsh order, was better than chaos. Religion did not promise salvation. It promised continuity. And from this brutal clarity, the architecture of civilization was born. While Sumer feared its rivers, Egypt trusted one. The Nile flooded every year, predictably, rhythmically, almost mercifully. From this certainty emerged a radically different religious vision. The Egyptians did not see the universe as chaotic and volatile. They saw it as ordered, balanced between two forces, Mat cosmic harmony, truth, order, and Isfet chaos, falsehood, dissolution. Religion in Egypt was not negotiation. It was maintenance. And at the center of this system stood the pharaoh. In Egypt, there was no separation between religion and state. The pharaoh was not chosen by the gods. He was a Netzer, a living god on earth. Only the pharaoh could perform the most sacred rituals. One of them was the opening of the mouth ceremony, believed to grant life to statues, so the gods could inhabit them. Religion here was precise, technical, and deeply ritualized. The sun god Ra crossed the sky each day, carrying order with him. Every night, Ra entered the underworld, battling the serpent Apophis, the embodiment of chaos. To ensure the sun would rise again, dawn was not guaranteed. It had to be earned. Egyptian architecture was designed to assist this cosmic struggle. The pyramids were not tombs. They were resurrection machines. Once covered in polished white limestone, the Great Pyramid reflected sunlight, like a beacon of eternity. Inside, every corridor, every angle, every chamber was aligned with the heavens. These structures were not symbolic. They were functional. At Karnak, religion became physical experience. The hypostyle hall, with its 134 massive columns, was designed to resemble the papyrus marsh of creation. As worshippers moved inward, the floor rose, the ceiling lowered, and lights slowly disappeared. The body itself was compressed into submission. At the center, in complete darkness, stood the god Amun-Ra, hidden, silent, absolute. Death, in Egypt, was not an ending. It was a transition. The soul fractured into parts, Ka, Ba, Ak, each requiring ritual precision to reunite in the afterlife. Mummification was not superstition. It was engineering. Every organ removed, preserved, or returned with intention. The heart, the seat of memory and morality, would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. Failure meant annihilation. Success meant eternity. Egyptian religion did not promise escape from the world. It promised its perfect continuation forever. Order was sacred. Change was dangerous. And eternity was something that could be built, while the religions of Mesopotamia and Egypt sought order through control, hierarchy, and precision. A radically different vision of the sacred emerged in South Asia, in the fertile plains of the Indus, and later along the Ganges River. Religion did not ask how to serve the gods. It asked how to become one with them. Hinduism did not begin as a single religion. It began as a continuum of ideas, rituals, and philosophies that evolved over millennia. At its foundation lies the Vedas, among the oldest religious texts, still in continuous use today. The Rig Veda, composed around 1500 BCE, was not written in the modern sense. It was heard. Ancient seers, known as rishis, believed sacred knowledge was revealed through sound itself. Truth was vibration. Language was sacred, before it was semantic. Fire rituals, known as yajna, formed the beating heart of early Hindu practice. Offerings of clarified butter, grains, and the mysterious ritual drink, soma, were placed into the flames. Fire was not merely symbolic. It was a cosmic messenger. The smoke rising upward was believed to sustain the movement of the universe itself. But Hinduism did not remain focused solely on ritual action. Over time, it turned inward. The Upanishads introduced one of the most profound ideas in human religious history, that the Atman, the inner self, is identical to Brahman, the ultimate reality behind all existence. God was no longer distant. God was not confined to the sky, or a statue, or a king. God was the fabric of reality itself. Liberation did not come through obedience, but through realization. Ignorance, not sin, was the root of suffering. Hindu cosmology viewed time not as a straight line, but as an endless cycle. Universes were born, destroyed, and reborn across vast cosmic ages. Creation was not a singular event. It was breathing. This philosophy was carved into stone through sacred architecture. Hindu temples were not gathering halls. They were three-dimensional diagrams of the cosmos, built according to Vastu Shastra. Every proportion, every axis, every angle mirrored cosmic order. The rising spire, known as the Shikara, represented Mount Meru, the axis of the universe. And within these temples, something remarkable appeared: fractals. Every smaller tower replicated the shape of the greater whole. Infinity expressed through repetition. The universe contained within every fragment. Hinduism did not demand uniform belief. It allowed contradiction, ritual and philosophy, action and meditation, devotion and knowledge. This adaptability is precisely why Hinduism never collapsed. It absorbed invasions. It survived reform. It transformed without breaking. While empires fell and gods vanished elsewhere, this vision of reality continued to breathe. And it still does today. In the highlands of ancient Persia, religion took a decisive turn. For the first time in human history, the universe was divided, not by chaos and order, but by good and evil. This transformation is associated with a single prophetic figure, Zarathustra, known to the Greeks as Zoroaster. His teachings emerged in a world of many gods, ritual sacrifice, and inherited tradition. And yet, Zarathustra proposed something radically new, that reality itself was a moral battlefield. At the center of existence stood Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, embodiment of truth, order, and light. Opposing him was Angra Mainyu, later known as Ahriman, the spirit of deceit, destruction, and chaos. This was not metaphor. It was ontology. Good and evil were independent forces locked in cosmic opposition, and humanity was not neutral. Every thought, every word, every action moved the universe toward one side or the other. For the first time, morality was not local or tribal. It was universal. Zoroastrianism introduced a principle that would reshape history: ethical responsibility. The famous formula: good thoughts, good words, good deeds, was not advice. It was cosmic strategy. After death, the soul would face judgment at the Chinvat Bridge. For the righteous, the bridge widened, becoming a path of beauty and light. For those aligned with the lie, it narrowed into a blade, casting the soul into the house of lies. This was the first clear articulation of heaven and hell as moral destinations. Zoroastrian theology also transformed the role of ritual. Fire was sacred, but it was not a god. It was a purifier, a visible expression of truth. Zoroastrian priests wore veils over their mouths to prevent their breath from contaminating the sacred flame. Even death was regulated by ethics, because earth, fire, and water were creations of Ahura Mazda. They could not be polluted by a corpse. The solution was radical. The Dakma, known as the Tower of Silence. Bodies were placed atop circular stone towers, exposed to the sun and birds, allowing nature to reclaim them without corruption. Bones were later collected and placed in ossuaries. This was not cruelty. It was ecological theology. Zoroastrianism also introduced ideas that would travel far beyond Persia: angels and demons, final judgment, resurrection of the dead, a savior figure at the end of time. Through Persian influence, these concepts entered Jewish thought, and later, Christianity and Islam. Zoroastrianism did not spread by conquest. It spread by ideas. And though its numbers declined, its influence never vanished. For the first time, religion declared that the universe cares not only what happens, but what you choose. The moral war had begun. On a narrow strip of land between powerful empires, religion underwent its most radical transformation. In Mesopotamia, gods were administrators. In Egypt, the god ruled as king. In Persia, the universe became a moral battlefield. But among the ancient Israelites, something unprecedented occurred. God was removed from nature itself. He was not the sun. He was not the storm. He was not embodied in a statue or represented by a king. God became transcendent, invisible, uncontainable, and defined not by image, but by word. This was the birth of ethical monotheism. Judaism did not emerge as a religion of temples or rituals alone. It emerged as a covenant, a binding agreement between a people and their God. At the center of this covenant stood the Torah, not as myth, but as law. The Torah introduced a revolutionary idea that morality was not optional. Justice, compassion, and responsibility were divine commands. God did not simply demand sacrifice. He demanded behavior. Unlike the gods of earlier civilizations, Yahweh could not be represented visually. This rejection of images, known as aniconism, severed the final tie between divinity and nature. No statue could contain God. No building could house him. Even sacred space was provisional. Before the stone temple, there was the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary, carried through the desert. This mobility changed everything. God was no longer tied to land. He traveled with the people. Later, in Jerusalem, the Temple of Solomon gave physical form to divine law. Built with cedar and gold, modeled after Phoenician design, the temple contained no image of God. Its holiest object was the Ark of the Covenant, not a statue, but a container of words. The 10 Commandments. When the temple was destroyed in 70 CE, something extraordinary happened. Judaism survived, not through stone, but through text. Priests became scholars. Sacrifice became study. The Talmud transformed religion into a living conversation. Law replaced ritual precision. Memory replaced monument. Judaism became portable, intellectual, indestructible. This revolution of the word reshaped the religious future of humanity. Christianity would inherit its scripture. Islam would inherit its monotheism. And the modern world would inherit its moral framework. For the first time, God was not encountered through nature or ritual, but through interpretation. Faith became dialogue. Obedience became understanding. And religion entered the mind. The ziggurats are silent. The pyramids stand empty. The fire temples burn quietly. And the ancient sanctuaries of Jerusalem exist now only in memory. But the gods did not disappear. They changed form. What once lived in stone moved into language. What was once enforced by ritual became preserved in law. What began as offerings to unseen powers evolved into ideas powerful enough to outlive empires. We still measure time using a 7-day cycle inherited from Mesopotamian astronomy. We still imagine paradise and judgment through concepts shaped in ancient Persia. We still seek liberation from suffering using philosophies born along the Ganges. And we still argue about justice, morality, and responsibility using a moral language first articulated by the prophets of Israel. Modern religions may differ in name, doctrine, and ritual, but beneath them all lie structures far older than belief itself. Systems designed not to comfort humanity, but to stabilize reality. The oldest religions did not ask, "What do you believe?" They asked, "What order must be maintained?" And remarkably, some of those ancient answers are still shaping the world today. We are not the first generation to search for meaning. We are simply the latest custodians of ideas that refuse to die. This is not the end of the story. It is the echo of its beginning. This is Echoes of the Ancients.